Welcome to Vigorous Health. I'm Coach Steve. Let's talk a little bit about the decisions you're making right now, which are probably going to affect your quality of life later on. Now, I'm already starting to notice this myself. Some of the poor decisions that I made at the beginning of my, steroid journey, so to say, are affecting me now 10 years later, or maybe 8 years later, whenever I decided to incorporate certain compounds or let my blood pressure go out of control way too long, way longer than it should have been. I already touched about this on the Vigorous Q&A a couple days ago, the decisions we're making in the past or right now that are going to affect the quality of our lives later on. But I feel that it warrants its own video because it's a very important message that I wish I had when I started, hormonizing myself with the performance enhancing drugs. So let's just go over some of the mistakes that I made in the past, and hopefully you guys can learn from that and hopefully not make the same mistakes or realize what you're doing is a mistake also. So on my second cycle, I did my first cycle, right? Testosterone and Winstrol was pretty low dose, and then I traveled for a year, and then when I came back, I did my second cycle. I started with testosterone. 4 weeks later, I added Trenbolone on top. Second cycle was a poor decision. So it was only 200 milligrams of Trenbolone, but that gave me incentive to slowly increase the dose and see what these high dosages were all about. Because during that time on the message board, most of these guys talked about, low dose of Trenbolone, maybe 150, 200, 250 milligrams, and then increasing your Trenbolone dose on top. And at that time, with the limited information and experience with hormones that I had, even though I was doing plenty of research, how they worked, what possible health ramifications, what possible side effects, the information we had back then isn't as extensive as we have now. And especially with YouTube, people sharing their experiences, it's a little bit, there's more information available, better information that you can make a decision on. So 8 years ago or 10 years ago when I did my first trend cycle, it was an underground lab, obviously. I didn't know anything about the carrier oils and the potential, health ramifications that toxic synthetic carrier oils can cause you. So I have no idea how high my C-reactive protein was at that time, but I'm sure it was inflamed because, I bought it online. It was shipped to me from another country. You store that in insulin syringes because it's easy to preload, right? And then you notice that some of the rubber stoppers were dissolving. And at the time, I didn't understand why. Now I know, because the synthetic carrier oil, there's such a strong solvent that they can dissolve the rubber stopper. And you just notice, but after the third day, the rubber stopper, when you inject, it starts to come loose and you pull out, you pull don't get naughty. You pull the syringe out because you don't want to inject any of the rubber, right? But you physically see that coming off while you're injecting this underground. So, who knows what has leaked from the rubber stopper into the synthetic carrier oil that has, been injected. So I have no idea if I injected rubber into my body. I have no idea if that ever happened, but it wouldn't surprise me. And back then I didn't know. But you got to remember that whenever you inject a foreign body, you create a little bit of scar tissue. White blood cells go to the area, you form a calcification. Now it's in there for life. And I can feel, on my quads, for example, in my upper glutes, some spots that never go away. Even with deep tissue massage therapy, they never go away. Now, how that affects my blood work, potentially injecting rubber or whatever leaks out of the rubber or the synthetic carrier oil that I've been using for, from certain brands, certain amounts of time. Until I figured it out, we're a few years in. So I'm sure I've used underground labs with organic carrier oil, the guys that are a little bit smarter that know that ethyl oleate or propylene glycol or migliol or whatever, chemical name they have. Some of the underground labs that I've used are aware of this. They used cottonseed oil or grapeseed oil. Okay, at least that was reasonably healthy for your inflammatory marker. So I don't expect that my C-reactive protein went up that much, or my cytokines, or whatever can cause inflammation, and you can keep track of through blood work. So there must be periods where I didn't increase my inflammatory markers and periods where I did do that. And when you use underground labs, like I always try to source as much pharmaceutical as I could. So if I had an option for pharmaceutical grade, I would run that. So the testosterones and the Primos and the tablets, right? I always try to source as much pharmaceutical grade as I could. But, Tren, Masteron, Boldenone, sometimes even Androlone if it's not available. Yeah, you use underground labs. And you never really know with the carrier oil and what you're taking and sterility and all that stuff if you're getting proper products. So those are mistakes that I made, and I'm sure they're affecting me now by putting foreign bodies through the injection administration route into my quads and glutes and whatever injection site I used, because I preloaded syringes with toxic synthetic carrier oil. Yeah, you make a lot of mistakes, man. Another mistake is the super high tren dosages, 250 tests and 700 tren or 1000 tren. At the time, I was way smaller than I am now, but you read it on the message board. You don't see anybody, you don't see anybody posting their pictures or their results, their before and afters, because everybody's afraid or nobody really looks good. Whatever it is, people give advice under, the comfort of anonymity. And luckily, that doesn't have to be followed anymore, because now we got social media and YouTube, and you can actually see what the guy looks like before you decide to follow his advice. So this is on Test and Primo, right? And some mistakes in the past, so you don't have to make the same mistake. But I did, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons why my creatinine levels are a little bit higher than I want them to be. When I do a 24-hour urine check, so you collect your urine for 24 hours, and then you take that, you compare the creatinine, the albumin, and the electrolytes to in the urine, compare that to whatever is in your blood, right? And then they give you not the estimated glomerular filtration rate, but the actual glomerular filtration rate, because now they have a 24-hour collection to compare the blood values and the urine values to. With those markers, I always come back at 97, 99% glomerular filtration rate, which is a top, but it's not over 100%. Some people get over 100% and they have, very good functioning kidneys. I haven't seen 100% in, probably since never, because I've never done a urine collection test when I didn't see these, elevated creatinine levels, because you see no reason for concern. So you see a creatinine of 1.1, like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm a big guy. I have a lot of muscle. I'm still good. And then you see a 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, and then you get a little bit worried. So I can account that to high dosages of tren, or I can account that to letting my blood pressure go uncontrolled for 6 months, 8 months, trying to figure out what is causing it. Was it a magnesium deficiency? Was it the high heat? Was it, the excess mineral retention, from sodium or potassium by using an anadrol or an androlone, or, there's so much to figure out. And then at one point you figure it out and you learn how to control your blood pressure by Cialis, or increasing your magnesium intake, or, limiting the sodium for a while, or making sure your electrolyte balance is in range, or by excluding certain compounds that are known to increase blood pressure, like anadrol, nandrolone, trenbolone, halotestin, Superdrol, all these little, stronger or compounds with more side effects compared to the milder ones like testosterone and primobolan. I don't consider hair loss to be a terrible side effect, but that's just me. This is self-induced. I have to clip this twice a week, otherwise it grows way too fast. Thank you, growth hormone. So, some of these mistakes that I made in the past are definitely affecting my creatinine levels right now. And even though my glomerular filtration rate still comes back, reasonably high, it's still, every time I get my blood work, I'm like, not happy with those numbers. You take your astragalus and you control your blood pressure and you exclude all the hormones. But I see my creatinine levels are always stable, even when I go up to a heavier body weight. But it's still a number that I'm not happy with. And I'm pretty sure those higher elevations in creatinine levels, even though I know I'm going to have to say this a million times because you guys are going to say, it's kidney damage. No, my creatinine levels are a little bit elevated, which might indicate that I have reduced glomerular filtration rate. But whenever I do a 24-hour urine check, it still comes back around the top of the range. So mistakes that you made in the past that you're going to have to live with later on in life. And when you get a little bit older and wiser and there's a lot at stake, a relationship or, a business or whatever, and you're not thinking only 1 day, 2 days ahead anymore, then you feel a little bit stupid about yourself. So for doing those things, and what I always try to warn you guys about, the same as that 4-day D&B experiment, my blood work was horrendous after that. And I wish I never did it. But that's all in hindsight, right? And I know we all have to go through these mistakes and learn. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way. But, sometimes these decisions that you make, even though if it's only for a while, it might affect you for a long time. And I'm sure things that I'm doing right now could still affect me later on when I'm 50, 60, 70, whatever. But I'm really trying the best I can to make sure that I don't do any more damage than I've already done to my body, by the poor decisions that I made by, for the sake of experimentation and, because it sounded appealing at the time through a message board or whatever. So, these are the things that I have to deal with. Another one is digestion, for example, which has nothing to do with steroid use. I traveled for a year, right? I traveled for a year through Asia, and somewhere halfway down the line, and I was only eating street food, somewhere halfway, I think it was, Singapore or Malaysia. It has nothing to do with the country. It's just by the fact that I was keep eating street food, a lot of processed carbs and vegetable oils, and, you're living outside and no air conditioning, sleeping conditions, and because you're trying to save money, right? You're a true backpacker. Every dollar counts. So you eat this cheap street food, and after 6 months, my digestion was horrible. Horrible, man. And then by the time I got to China, this is a funny story. By the time I got to China, I was climbing the Chinese wall. It's a longer section. Can't remember the name. It's like 13 kilometers, a little bit out of town. You need to take a bus for 2 hours. And I had a meal somewhere on the way. And then every step I was farting. Every step on the Chinese wall for 13 kilometers, I passed gas. That's how bad it got. That's how my digestion was ruined. And then luckily, by the time I took the bus back home, all the gas was gone from the breakfast, and I didn't have to hold it for the 1.5 hour bus journey that I was going back. So 1 year of traveling has probably ruined my digestion permanently forever. And I've been trying to optimize my digestion afterwards, by eating like a FODMAP diet or elimination diet or a carnivore diet, etc. But some foods I just can't eat. A garlic or onion or some of the vegetables, it just all turns into gas. And it was not the case before I started traveling. It was all after traveling. And I've tried everything: fasting, antibiotics, cures, repopulation my gut microbiome with a million different probiotics, including yogurt and kimchi and sauerkraut and a raw food for a while. And I tried everything, everything. Nothing worked. So that has nothing to do with bodybuilding and PED use and some of the poor decisions that we make, for the sake of a little bit of muscle. But I wanted to see the world. And as a result of that, my digestion is permanently ruined. It's not ruined. I mean, if I follow a pescatarian diet, like a fish or eggs, is that pescatarian? I'm not really sure. And all these labels nowadays, it's exhausting. So I eat a certain way, which matches my digestion well. I don't pass any gas. I don't have any bloating, a gastrointestinal upset, weird bathroom experiences the next day. But it means my foods are very restricted and I don't have so many options. And then every time I have a cheat meal, let's say I have a hamburger with some vegetables, or onions, or, we go for nice Lebanese food and the hummus got a little bit of garlic. I got to sleep in the other room, man. So these are decisions that I made that I somewhat regret. I mean, I don't regret seeing the world and having an awesome time and, seeing the world from a different perspective. But some of the decisions that I made with steroid use, yeah, definitely, man. I wish I never took DMP, and honestly, I wish I never took Trenbolone. Okay, I have the experience of Trenbolone, how it affects the body, and I can translate that advice to other people, how to use it in a lower dose and how to mitigate some of the side effects. But I always make sure I tell them, so listen, if you want to take Trenbolone, only during contest prep, there's no need for it in the off season. Only during contest prep, 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, and make sure that the oil is organic, not this toxic that they put, in 50% of the underground labs now, because it's it's such a strong solvent. You can basically dissolve anything into it, including human flesh. Maybe that's a little bit excessive, but you guys know what I mean. So whatever you're putting in your body right now, let's compress it into the end. Whatever you're doing and you're putting into your body right now, maybe 10 years from now, you'll see that on your blood work. And, it's no different from smoking and drinking in that sense. Your body has a very high tolerance, and it's pretty strong until you break it. And then it's weak. And it sounds very, very silly to say it like this, but you can abuse your body to a significant point. And then once you reach that point of breaking and it's broken, now you're basically fighting for your life. And I've seen that quite a bit in the bodybuilding industry, where some people keep abusing. And everybody knows about all the deaths that have been occurring recently. So, and these are at the higher level, so you hear about it. But you got to remember about the ground level, or the middle level of all the bodybuilders that have no social media, just train for fun but still, take a little bit too much PEDs for what they need, and it's taking away from their health. And at one point they'll get a heart attack, or they get diabetes, or, whatever side effect, or they die. You don't hear from it because, they're not that popular. They're not a big name in the sport. But the majority of the sport are not big names. They're just average guys that like to train, maybe take steroids recreationally, maybe take them not as informed, just like I took them not as informed as I should have been. And back then I was another anonymous name on a message board, right? So if I would have died and nobody knew about it, only the people around me would have known and would have cared, So in the bigger picture, keep in mind that, the amount of negative health ramifications that we hear about are only a very small amount of what is actually going on. And now I'm being honest about it, but a lot of the guys, they just downplay it. And they're not honest about it, and they say, yeah, it'll be okay. And you can see clearly by the guys that suddenly need to downsize, and they say, oh yeah, I want to be small. No. Show me your blood work. It's not good. We both know this. Everybody knows this, but you don't talk about it. So everything is fine until they need to do slim down, and then, suddenly they're sub 200 pounds. And it's because of negative health complications. They're forced to show down, and whether that's because of the kidneys, and they need to reduce their protein intake, or high blood pressure, or digestive issues, or, liver complications. You never really know because these guys don't really talk about it. But I'm sure if they had a time machine, they would tell themselves, hey, don't do all this shit. So you have the opportunity not to do all this shit now. By me opening up a little bit about, the mistakes that I've made, because it will affect you at one point. I already noticed it myself. And I honestly, I wish I never did some of the experiments that I did in my younger years. And I know that in hindsight, everything is 2020. And, with the experience you had in your life, you will go forward, hopefully making better choices. But with the availability of the internet and all the information that you can find on it, you don't really have to anymore. You don't really have to go through this experimentation process anymore. You can find all the studies and all the literature and go by other people's experience. And if they're, hopefully they're honest about it, about some of the mistakes they made. So you don't have to make it. And then you can, enjoy this sport for a pretty long time, which is what I intend to do. Enjoy it until my 50s, 60s, 70s, or at least until I get bored. And then hopefully have no negative health ramifications that I have to deal with at that time. Hope that helps, guys. Hope you enjoyed this kind of content. I know it's a little bit preachy, but hey, we got to learn sometimes. And a little bit of preachy content goes a long way, especially towards the younger crowd that is still considering about taking hormones. Step by step, guys. Take it slow. There's no rush. because you want to be doing this for 50, 60, 70 years, don't burn the candle for both ends. Hope that helps. Have a nice day, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.